in the same.
Ever stand for the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Ms. Doherty?
Here.
Mr. Hoey?
Here.
Mr. Lay? Ms. Martin?
Here.
Mr. Nutter?
Here.
Mayor Samaras?
Here.
Mr. Dakota?
Here.
7 present.
All right, I need a motion to accept and place on file the minutes, approval of the minutes of the regularly scheduled Lowell School Committee meeting of Wednesday, December 20th, 2017. Okay, thank you. Councilor Martin, second by Councilor Lay. Thank you.
Committee minutes. committee member.
Is this the city, this isn't the city council meeting? Well, maybe I'll go home. Okay, we said it's a learning curve, all right. Superintendent Calafawi, do we have some information for this body regarding the problems at the high school with the water and the heat?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we do have some updates, and thank you for giving us the chance to update. This is a good opportunity to do so, because then the public would know that. We had Mr. Fresh, myself, and Mr. Underwood, our facilities director, met with the city, and we were very, very pleased by the very bold steps taken by the city manager, and I'd like to publicly thank him for those steps that he took. Today, he sought and got permission from the Commonwealth to waive the bidding laws so that he can enter into contracts immediately. So he entered into 2 major contracts, one with the train company to take care of one side of the school, the high school, and he also entered into a contract with Boston Mechanic. They're all time and material contract. So he was asked how much is it going to take. He said it doesn't matter. It's whatever it takes to fix it, do it. And they have already come today to look at these things. They're going to be working on it today, tomorrow, over the weekend, and make sure that everything is taken care of in the high school. That will give him the chance to free up all DPW to employees and focus on we have about half a dozen schools that had issues, not to the extent of the high school, where as of yesterday in the high school we had about 20% of our classrooms were below the minimum required by the state, which is 68 degrees. So, but they did have issues anyway, so they will be able to take care of those issues, and they have been already. Not to say that the public works wasn't working. They were working very hard. They just could not. With the cold we've been having, it's a 100-year event, so which means everybody here has not seen it. This is the first time we've experienced something like this. So they've been working very hard. They just couldn't keep up with it. So he took the bold steps to go beyond DPW and hire. So we're very pleased by that. I'll take also this opportunity, if I may, to remind everybody that we have closed schools for tomorrow, not related to the heat, but because of the storm that is that we're all expecting. And I believe that the city manager has also taken the decision to close City Hall as well tomorrow, and other city and other public buildings. We do not know yet as what's going to happen on Friday. Most likely, and unless we are pleasantly surprised that they finish all the work, I doubt it, in one day, but most likely the high school will continue to be closed on Friday, but we will obviously send a message to that effect, and then we don't know as well the extent of the damage with tomorrow's storm, so we'll be notifying you on Friday as well for the other schools. But we're very pleased, and again, I'd like to acknowledge publicly the great effort and the bold steps taken by the city, and we thank them for taking it very seriously. Thank you.
Do we have any discussions? I had asked the city manager to meet with superintendent and myself at 1:30 today, because there are so many questions that were coming in, had so many emails that were concerned about either safety regarding the heat, and there were all kinds of stories that were way out of proportion. And so the city manager really did act, in the proper way, rather than approach this in a piecemeal manner, as superintendent stated. We've got 2 companies that can come in and fix the high school, and at the same time allowing middle schools and elementary schools that have some problems to be taken care of. Are there any concerns by any member of this committee, anything that want to be raised? Okay, thank you. Okay, motion by Mr. Gerald Nutter, Superintendent Supply School Committee at the next meeting with the projected costs for level funded 2018-2019 school budget. Second, Councilor Doherty, thank you. Ms. Doherty, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. through you to the superintendent, we've spoken. I was very surprised last week when I heard on WCAP that the high school had to cut $750,000 because, as far as I know, no budget has been put forth by either the superintendent nor the city manager. But I just thought, with budget season coming up, we know we're going to face some challenges, and it would be good to get out in front of it and see what a level-funded budget will cost us. So that's the reason for the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, thank you. Next, a motion by Gerald Nutter, request mayor to request the city manager to break out the transportation costs and add as separate line items under school. So the budget clearly reflects what the city pays for transportation and the amount of cash city is contributing to the school department. Mr. Nutter? Seconded by Ms. Martin.
Thank you. The superintendent, the past 2 years that he's been here, I believe has done this in his budget, and I just think it's a good idea for the city. As everyone knows or should know, transportation is not covered under net school spending. It is not the school department's responsibility. It is the city's responsibility. It doesn't count to their net school spending either, but we should know how much transportation cost and how much in actual cash the city is giving to the school department. So I just thought it would be nice to have it done the same way as the superintendent does his budget.
Any further discussion? Thank you. Okay, next motion by Gerald Nutter. School committee reschedule April 18th meeting, school vacation, to April 25th and approve the following dates for the budget presentation and approval. April 25th, budget presented to school committee, city council chambers. April 30th, budget public hearing, Stucklosa School Auditorium, have Channel 22 broadcast live. May 9th, budget public hearing, city council chambers. May 14th, budget public hearing, Sullivan School Auditorium, have Channel 22 broadcast live. May 16th, final budget approval, regular school committee meeting, city council chamber. I need a second.
Second.
Mr. Hoy, thank you. Mr. Nutter?
This ties in with actually the finance subcommittee report that is next. Mr. Fish presented this schedule, which I had gone over with him, to the subcommittee. The administration feels that it's a good idea, that it's a schedule that they can live with. And it, like I say, we know we're going to face some challenges. I think going out to the neighborhoods, letting the neighborhoods get involved, letting the parents have a voice is important. So I was happy that the administration agreed to this timetable, and we're all going to work to maintain that schedule. Thank you.
Any discussion on this? Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And again, I had commented on this at our last school committee meeting too. I think that this is a great schedule, and I think that it's really, it bodes well for how our process will go this year. My only recommendation would be, and it would actually fall to whoever you choose as their chair of the finance subcommittee, would be if we could have an open finance subcommittee prior to this April 25th date, just to give the public an opportunity to actually discuss with the subcommittee and with the administration priorities. We've had these kind of open budget forums before, where prior to the budget being kind of completed, we give the public an opportunity to come and express their concerns and priorities for the budget moving forward. Again, it can be something that can be left until you choose a chair for that subcommittee.
Do you want to have this as an amendment to this motion?
If the
If
maker's
the-
motion, I
if
would
the
make it as
maker's
a friendly
motion
amendment,
approves.
if you wouldn't mind, that would be great.
Yes, I have no objection.
Okay.
I
Ms.
just-
Doherty?
Sorry, I just had a question. Did you check the April 25th date? Don't you have a board meeting on that?
I will have a board meeting on that night, but I'll make it.
Oh, I thought you might want to suggest that we do it the 26th, the day after, so that you could attend. And then my other question was in relation to your amendment right now. You want to put in additional budget, because he's got public hearings You want to do one before the?
I'd like to, again, in the past, what we've done is the Finance Subcommittee has hosted an open forum, not, like, the public budget hearings are when we're going line by line, the budget's already been created, so it's kind of already established. But if we could have an open forum at the beginning to give the public and all kind of the stakeholders an opportunity to express their concerns and whatnot moving forward, I think that would be a helpful first step for all of us to hear and prior to it being finalized.
I'm not against that. I just wanted to clarify. But I was thinking that we could change that, the April 25th date to the 26th if my colleagues were amenable to that.
It's up to you guys. I wouldn't impose it, but it would be great.
Is that,
Again, I have
you approve? No
no
problem?
objection to that if that,
If I could make that as a friendly amendment too, I'm sorry.
Amendment.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, one of the things, if you don't mind me, from the podium, have you talked to any of the neighborhood groups? The one thing on the council, what we have found, the neighborhood groups have become very effective in getting information out, or raising any concerns that they might have. And I'm talking about Centerville, Pawtuckettville, Highlands, the downtown, Belvedere. Have you talked about maybe including one more meeting, that they could have a combined meeting of the neighborhood leaders? It's just a suggestion. But
I have not, but again, sounds like a great idea. I know I'm planning on attending the Pawtucket meeting, Pawtucketville Citizens Council, next Monday evening, so I'm sure we can talk to them and Deb Forgione and Andrew Page and get something worked up.
They've become a very effective voice in the city, and I think this is so important that it just becomes very helpful. Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, thank you. Okay, subcommittees, Finance Subcommittee. Is there a motion to accept and place on file? Ms. Martin and Mr. Hoey? All right, I'm sorry, Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Your Honor. Through you to Mr. Frisch, I know there were a number of questions that we were going to be getting information later. Would that just be supplied at a later time? I mean, it's noted here in the minutes. And then the other thing I wanted to request, you had provided us with a very interesting document comparing Lowell with other urban districts, and I didn't see it on the website. I'm wondering if we could get that posted as well. Because, you have the minutes, and in the minutes, we refer to that document, looking at the expenses, per pupil expenses, how much we spend on maintenance, how much we spend on administration. And I know you pulled that information right from DESE, but it was looking at Lowell and comparing us with like urban districts, and I just thought it was so informative, and I think it should be included on the website so the public has access to it. I know it was presented during the Finance Subcommittee meeting, but I think it would be good to have it online if I could request that. And then whenever, I don't know what the new Finance Subcommittee is going to look like. I hope to continue to be on it, but I would love to get some of this information that was brought up, questions provided to us when you get to that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, actually, I need this as a report, to accept this as a report of progress. Thank you, Mr. Nutter and
Second.
Mr. Hoey. Thank you. Roll call, correct? No, roll call. Okay. That's easy. All right, report of the superintendent on enrollment figures. Mr. Superintendent, do you have any?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was a practice I had introduced a few weeks ago from previous practice that I had in another district, to just every week, every meeting, we send these updated figures just to keep everyone informed.
Are there any questions, Mr. Hoey?
Yes, through you to Mr. Frisch. When we talk how many students we have, it's around, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I believe counting charter schools and everything, about 15,800, correct?
Right. When we're talking just about students in our district schools,
Right.
it's for this past October, it was 14,247.
Now, my question is, did we increase students this year or decrease?
Right. That question was brought up before, and I said I'd get back to you, and I did, in fact, look that up. There was a 30-count decrease in the number of students, a decrease.
Thank you. That's all I need to know. Thanks.
Mr. Nutter?
Through you to Gary, the plus students that we've had since November, looks like it's about 86, 87. Because it came after October, I just think people need to know that we do not get credit for those kids when they do the foundation budget for next year. So we've picked up, almost 100, and there'll probably be more than that before, the year's over, and that does not get included in our foundation budget for next year. So people need to be aware that, that's a big hit for the school department.
Well, that's an excellent point that you raised, Mr. Nutter, and you're exactly correct.
Any further discussion? Okay, I need a motion to accept this report of progress. Mr. Hoy and Mr. Savaggio. Mr. Dakota. Names of the past. All right, thank you. New business. Classroom space issue, Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You've all received this document from Mr. Frisch, and you've read it, I'm sure, and you might have some questions, but before we get into possible questions that you might have, I just wanted to explain for the benefit of the public. In looking at next year, we have three major issues that we need to resolve. Issue number one is the day school. As you recall, this year we opened a day school that has been extremely successful, and we were not able, after a long time searching for space in Lowell, we were not able to find any space in Lowell. We rented space from our collaborative, who happens to be in Methuen. We had made a promise to the parents and to the community that we're going to be working very hard to try to bring it back to Lowell. And also we've had an additional issue coming up, rising with that, is the fact that the collaborative building that we are renting from has been sold by the collaborative as of next year. So even if we wanted to, we would not have the ability to renew the lease there. Not that we want to do that. So we've been very active with the city government, with the city manager in his office, to locate space and trying to figure out space to do that. So we had that issue to deal with. Independent of the day school, we had another issue to work with, and that is the STEM Academy. In the STEM Academy, as you know, every year we add one more grade until we reach 8th grade, and then after that, the 8 moves to the to the high school as 9th graders. So again, if you recall, last year we had to do a lot of last-minute renovations in the STEM Academy to convert a lot of the spaces into classrooms. We're running out of space. There is no real space to leave, to renovate, to make sure that we have space for the upcoming 100 or more students, which would be over 4 sections. We do not have space for those next year. So that was another issue that independent of that, we had to deal with. And finally, the third issue that we wanted to tackle was the Cardinal program. Cardinal is one of our alternative schools, alternative middle schools. We have 2 alternative middle schools. We have the Cardinal, and we have also the Bridge, as you know. And usually what it is the students who would be recommended for alternative placement, they would be sent to one of these 2 programs where we have very, very highly qualified professionals trained in those areas to give them, hopefully, not only help them in the issues that they were referred to, but also continue the learning, because it is a school. Those 2 programs have a capacity of 50 each. Each one is now, the Bridge is around 30, so we still have about plenty of capacity, about 2/5. And the Cardinal also has a capacity of 50, and I think as of last month, maybe there's 1 or 2 more by now, but they were about 17 or 18 only. One of the difficulty that we have in moving those numbers and in getting to helping the schools is really the process is in of itself, the legal process, there's a whole process that you get to. You just don't move kids like that. You need to follow a certain legal process, state rules, and if they require special needs, then you have that process as well to follow. And it's not uncommon that the process can be a couple months in the making. So in looking, and we needed to figure out how to help the schools, because a lot of the middle schools require that kind of assistance, and they need it a lot faster than we're able to provide it. So in looking at all these three problems, the administrative team has been trying to figure out solution for all these three. So we came up with with three options that we work. Well, we looked at a lot, but we narrowed down to three options that we put on that report. But one of the options that we're definitely recommending more than the others is one option that hopefully can help us in all three areas. And that is an option, if you would allow me for a couple more minutes to explain that, is that the option where we would take the kids, the students who, when we looked at the students where the current students of the STEM, of the Cardinal, they're mostly coming from two schools, a couple from a third school. And to be able to, we're not calling for dismantling the program. We're calling for reallocating the program into those two schools, or maybe a third in the future. I do not know, but we're looking more, depending on the needs of the students, we're looking at reallocating the programs in the home schools. I think this is something that the parents will welcome, they have always asked for, because they are usually reluctant on moving their students. But in order not to alarm everybody else and say, wait a minute, I thought the whole idea was to place them into an alternative program outside. Yes, the idea is to place them into an alternative program, not necessarily outside of the school. So we would then ask for all the resources that we have into the Cardinal program would be then taken to the schools where the programs are so they can continue to take care of the children, except that we're now allowing the schools to be able to make quicker decisions and be able to help the students much faster because they have their own resources as opposed to having to wait for a process to move them and not be able to help the students quickly. That's just for the Cardinal. As far as the bridge is concerned, we will keep it because it addresses certain needs of students that it will be very difficult to spread the resources around the middle schools. And some of the children who might be currently in the bridge might be in the Cardinal might end up qualifying as well to be moved to the bridge. And they do have capacity as of now. They have, I think, about 20 openings. So if we're able to do that, if that's the direction we want to take, that will free up the building of the Cardinal. And we looked initially at what we could we use the building of the Cardinal for the day school. And when we looked at the requirements, when our SPED director looked at the requirements with the states of what it would take to make it, to satisfy the code for a day school, it became very quickly that it was going to be very, very expensive for the city to do that. And we weren't going to go to the city just for that, especially when, trying to do everything in a rush is going to probably cost you even more. So we thought, well, we looked at the Rogers. The Rogers School has the lower level of the Rogers School is already fully fitted and fully approved for that code. And we could consider the day school going into the Rogers. They have their own entrance. They have access to the parking. They have access to the yards for play, they have access to the gym, they have access, so you're really giving them the maximum access, which the state likes you to do that, because you want to give these students all the access. And that would present, of course, if we're able to do that, then we're creating as well more needs for classrooms. And the idea was then to take the 6th and 7th grades and of the STEM academy, STEM school, and move them to the alternative school to the current building of the alternative school. Of course, the teachers will be there, the curriculum is the same, it will continue to exist. The support that we support the academy for the technology, whatever they need in terms for their STEM needs will remain, will be there. We have not really done much other than studying this theoretically. We have not gone beyond. We've worked this with the STEM Academy leadership to understand, you know, what is their position, how do they think about it, and they're very much supporting it. I asked the team not to put too much in it yet because we still have, you know, several options, and there may be options out there that we haven't identified that. As we open the discussion with you and the public, we might identify perhaps a better option than what we're looking at. So, but we needed to start somewhere, and so that's what we presented to you. We think it's a good start. Is it the only possibilities? No, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody comes up with a better idea, and we welcome that, obviously. But we did present all the options that we looked at. We were a little bit under stress in terms of time because the city needed an answer for the portables, because if we did not do anything, we would have to put portables in the Rogers school, at the Rogers, to accommodate for the rising grades. And we needed that. The portables are extremely expensive, and we did not think that it was wise to be putting a lot of money without looking first at other options where we can avoid the portables altogether. So we have notified the city manager back then, I think it was December 18 or so, when we promised him an answer, that we do have several options. As of now, we've identified, you know, a few options that we can avoid having some portables. It's not the final option, but we're confident that we could come up whether one of the options that we're recommending or something slightly different, that we could try to avoid putting portables and just wasting money in those. They're very expensive, and it's not a good investment. So that's what it is. My recommendation, if you allow me, is that this is so important. We're going to have public forums for it. I want to hear from the parents involved. I want to hear from the teachers. I want to hear from the community at large. I would welcome that we take this to a subcommittee level where we can bring a lot more details and collect a lot more input from the community and all parties concerned. So we're not really asking you necessarily for a final decision today, but just we're updating you on what we're trying to do and what we are at this point recommending to do, and what the direction that we'd like to continue. Thank you.
Ms. Martin, did you have a?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate that we're getting several options, and I would absolutely agree that any one of these options is better than portables. So we really want to avoid that, I think, at all costs, because it's a expense that, I mean, it's just throwing money out the window in the end. So I think that it's great that we're able to at least pin down that we don't want to move forward on the portable option. And I think moving forward with subcommittees, wherever this gets sent, I think that's a great idea. I think there's obviously a lot of moving parts in each one of these plans, and I think the idea of being able to include both the school constituencies as well as the public in having these conversations so that we really can dig in and figure out what can really move where, and do it in a way that, appreciates that we are going to be under a time constraint, but that does give us appropriate time and input to be able to really look at all the options to make the best choice going forward. So I think, again, any one of the proposed options is better than investments in portables at this point, but I think the plan you laid out makes perfect sense to move forward to get additional information over time. Thank you.
Doherty?
Thank you. So I'd like to start with, I think that it's a great idea that we vet these options out more fully. And I think the Student Services Alternative School Subcommittee, which I chair, would be the perfect starting place for that. Oh, I did chair. I don't know if I'll still be on it. And we should get that on the calendar soon because we are really under a time crunch. A couple of things I want to throw out. First, a question. You talked about that the bridge is at about 30 with a capacity of 50. The Cardinal's about 18. Why not just blend the Cardinal into the bridge? Open up the Cardinal site and make that be the alternative school. And I'll tell you, I have some major concerns with a couple of these options. I don't want to blow up the STEM Academy, have the 6th and 7th grade go someplace else. I really would like to have that continuity. I'm okay with moving the pre-K classrooms out to make the space, but I'd like to keep that whole, if we could, keep it in the same building. And I also have major concerns about moving those students back to the sending schools, especially when you tell me that many of them came from the Robinson and the Sullivan schools, where we know we have special challenges already at the Robinson in particular. I'm assuming these students were not moved out willy-nilly, that there was some real concerns, and hope to get supports for those students in this specialized program. I don't see moving them back as being helpful to the students or to the culture at the Robinson School, where they're just trying to get back on their feet with a lot of challenges they've had. So I'm very concerned about those two pieces, blowing up the Rogers or moving the older kids into another building, and then taking those Cardinal students and bringing them back to the sending schools. The other question I had was looking at what would the cost be to move the day school to the freshman academy or to the Cardinal. What are we looking at in terms of cost? Because we know with the day school, we're seeing a significant savings in our out-of-district costs, and that an investment in a program, like let's say we moved it to the Cardinal, that we were able to make the Cardinal part of the bridge and open that as the Cardinal as our day school. Any investment in the handicap facilities or the lower sinks or whatever, I think would pay off as the program grows. That's just what thought I have. And then with the freshman academy, wasn't it originally a K-8 school? So I'm wondering if there's some
I think it was 2 schools.
2 to 8 K-8 schools. So are there some facilities already in place, or were they already renovated? And I know you might not have all those answers tonight, but just to kind of give you some feedback of where I'm coming from and how we look at this. There are a lot of moving parts, and I want to do something that's good for kids and is cost efficient and looks forward. That's forward-looking, that we're not going to be, wringing our hands that wasn't the best move. But I agree from the outset, we need more discussion, more information. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Superintendent.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think a lot of the questions will be answered when we get into the subcommittee level, but I just want to address 2 issues because I don't want to leave out there the wrong impression. The blowing up, the way you called it, blowing up the STEM Academy, it's actually a plan that came from the STEM Academy. It wasn't, they're big advocates of not having a K-8 4 sections. It's huge. They're really welcome, either come down to 2 sections or just, they prefer 2 schools down the road when we have the full 8th grade to have an elementary STEM, a middle STEM, and then we, as you know, we're working very hard building the STEM, and they're working, the high school is doing a great job in building their STEM capacity. So they wanted to have those 3 components. So that's actually an idea and a plan that came from the STEM Academy. So I just wanted to make sure that you know that. And as far as the Cardinal Academy, I think one of the things that all the professionals have been thinking about, and I'm talking about the people who really deal with this, the SPED people, the special education professionals we have. I think the argument that I would present is that if the professionals who are now in the Cardinal servicing the children have been in place in those 2 main schools that send their kids there, I'm not sure we would have had any referral, except very rare referral out to possibly the bridge. Because the reason that they have the most of it, and I know I've been very closely involved this year personally with the 2 of them, the reason that we see this high demand on referral outside is because they do not have professionals inside. If they had their professionals, we were probably not having any referral, except in the extreme cases where we do have capacity in the bridge, and they would be sending them. I think all of that, when we do this discussion in details, I'm sure we'll bring Jennifer McChrystal, the SPED director, with her team to speak to about all of these and answer questions as well. Thank you.
Snyder?
You mentioned that you've looked around Lowell. Have we issued a request for proposals to look for property here in the city that we could use for a day school? At least
we
this
did that
year?
last year, right?
I know
This
you did
year,
it last year,
yeah.
but have you issued a new one to look for it this year?
I'm not so sure what the city did. I know that the city has a long-term plan, a really good one. They have a long-term plan for this that they're working on, but they've already told us that the earliest we can see anything happening in terms of providing us with adequate space, permanent space for the day school is 2 years. So that's why we're looking at, that's the earliest. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised it might go to 3.
Okay, you all set? Mr. Hoy?
I think most of my questions will be answered in a subcommittee, but I think what Mr. Nutter was just trying is, I know Mayor Kennedy and the manager was trying to sell the Laurie Lee School and make a deal with a business that's going to help us build a day school out at the Elks, and that fell apart, correct?
Thank you for bringing that up. The deal itself, I'm not so sure whether it fell apart or just got delayed because of the unfortunate passing of the main interested person on that. But the city manager and myself and Mayor Kennedy at the time continued to look at other ways to make that happen. And I believe we have a solution how to make it happen. And the city manager is leading that effort. And I'm not going to, of course, go too public with that because I don't know where, he has to, what parts of it has to be negotiated. And he has the lead, and I'm going to respect that, let him with that. And he will continue to update us. What he had told us is that in no way they could make anything happen for a permanent home before 2 years at the earliest.
Okay, and just one more thing with alternative schools. Ironically, I'm sitting here 22 years later, sitting in the same spot I was when I voted against alternative schools. I didn't believe in them. I'll bring up more in the subcommittees. But I voted against them 22 years ago, and then about a year and a half ago with the last school committee, we voted to approve $1 million to fix the Career Center on Smith Street. And I would, through you, Mayor, to Ms. Durkin, if you know, I'm not sure, I'm just throwing this out tonight. What have we done with that $1 million, and is it moving in the direction of fixing that? Do you remember? I thought we had a vote on the school committee, because I remember voting for it. You put a team together to try to fix the Career Academy on Smith Street. But I thought we appropriated $1 million.
No, I think we had a grant that was, it was a grant that was awarded by the federal government, if I'm correct.
Okay.
And it was a multi-year grant for several years that involved several partners. With that, those programs continue. They're working. We were told that the grant, the funding comes yearly. We were told that the grant is secure this year, and I think it is secure for next year. But not necessarily that will continue into year 4 and 5. We're not so sure.
Okay,
it was
because
a 5-year plan.
when you're sitting here watching alternative schools, the Bridge program, to me, they have a different, hate to use the wrong words, but a different type of child, let's say at the Bridge program, where I seen a golden retriever that does a miracle work with some children there. But the one at the Cardinal O'Connor School, I have some issues with, and sending them back to their schools that they were sent out of, to me, that's something we have to talk about deeply. But I think if you're sending all the staff, and the last question, so I can get off it, A, B, and C, the options that I read, who did you form as a team to come up with those A, B, and C. Did you
was-
do that on your own?
No, well,
Okay.
no, I don't do things on my own.
I know, but I'd like to know. I want people to know
I think
how you
the-
came up with
we
those
have
things.
our administrative team, our senior team is all the assistant superintendent, myself. We have a couple of directors, director of SPED, their director of accountability, and each one would go back and discuss it usually with their departments and teams. So I know that the director of early childhood was invited to the discussion. We've had the director of special education had several people involved into it. I know she, like in the case of the schools, we had the principal, the vice principal of the STEM Academy completely involved with this from day one. So it's a lot of people involved in this decision. This isn't a decision of 2-3 people. This is the work that has been done by over 20 people.
And the last thing, what option does all those people want? A, B, or C?
Right now, at the end, we are recommending the option that I described, which is if we can do it, but we recognize that there are still quite a few challenges with that. We need to address what are the concerns of the parents for the things that Ms. Doherty brought up right now, the perception that, oh, you're taking the kids back. We're really not taking the kids back. The kids are not going back to their classroom. They're going back with their professionals to help them out, which if we had those professionals in the first place, the kids might not even be out unless if they're out, they probably would have been out to the bridge or out of districts altogether, as we do have some that are out of district. So that's we do recognize that there's still a lot of challenges, a lot of questions to ask, and a lot of details to bring. Cost issues is going to be a very important factor. Obviously, if one option becomes prohibitively expensive, that we can't afford, then right then and there, this is something you have to look at seriously. What we wanted to do is, one, we wanted to address the responsibly to the city's request, to the city manager when he asked us, because they were really worried about, the portables, because if they have to order them way in advance. So we wanted to make sure that we're responsible, and we had promised them a deadline, so we responded by the time they wanted us to. But before we could respond, we wanted to look at, before we say yes or no, do we have possibilities we could look at? So that was what we did. And then the other thing is really we wanted to start the dialogue, as Ms. Martin said earlier. Let's start it now. Let's not wait until April, May, and then we say, okay, what are we going to do now? Let's start it now. That's why we started it now.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Dakota?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a quick question. Is there room in the freshman academy for all the pre-Ks, or just 4 classes of pre-K, or can we fit all of the pre-Ks in that building?
I joke with the principals that the course that they take, it's like Principal 101 before they get the license, is learn to say, we have no room. That's what every principal would tell you. And I think we're going to have to look at sometimes what may seem like we don't have a space. Turns out, yes, we do. If you recall, you're on, when we were looking at the various option of the high school, when building the high school, initially the project, the director at the time, Skanka, was talking about putting over dozens and dozens of portables, 40 portables, and I said I really don't like portables. I mean, that's, I know we have to live with them if we have to, but I don't think portables is a good idea. And then when they came back and they really looked at the schedules, they came back and said, you know what, we don't really need any portable. It didn't, the way they did that is that what initially seemingly looked as there was no space in the high school turned out that it was just an issue of scheduling. Because currently the high school is scheduled more like a middle school or an elementary school where the teacher owned the room. Whether they teach or not, the room is there. Where if you follow the college level model where it is more, or some of the high schools as well in the state do that, is more like the class owns the model and the teachers rotate, and if they're not teaching, they can go to a teacher's room where they would have their own desk. By using that model, they were immediately able to free up tremendous amount of capacity that allowed them to come back to us and say they don't need any portables any longer. So I think I'm giving you this as an example because if I ask now the freshman academy and say how much room, they would tell you most likely we don't have room, and they would probably telling you absolutely the truth that they don't have room. But if you go beyond and look at the schedule and see how can we change the schedule to create the room, the scenario may be different. We do not have the answer right now. Thank you.
Mr. Lay?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Superintendent, you mentioned that the facility at Methuen has been sold. I wonder what's the time frame, how much time do we have before they kick us out of that building?
I happen to sit on the board of that entity because it's a collaborative. All the district members sit on the board, all the superintendents, or sometimes school committee members represent their districts on that board. That facility has been sold, but we are guaranteed to stay there until the end of the year, until the end of June, and then they turn it over to the new owner.
And will we have time to move those students around?
Well, yeah, June, I mean, it's the end of the year, so we will have time to start the new year in a new facility if we have the facility ready. One of the reasons that why we are drawn towards the Rogers School, the lower level of the Rogers School, because when we looked at it and we talked to our SPED personnel, the SPED professionals, they looked at it and they toured every one of the facilities that were looked at. And they're telling us that this is the facility where we're going to be the least amount of transformation, and we could turn it over really quick with the help of DP.
Thank you.
This is going to subcommittee. Do you want to continue discussion, or should we wait? Okay. Councilor Doherty. I'm sorry, Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Your Honor. Through you, one final quick question. Would you just clarify for us, when you talk about moving the professionals, like if you send the students back to their sending schools, would you then be splitting the staff? Some would go to the Robinson and some would go to the...
Yeah, in that idea that the SPED director will work out with the specific needs of each school. And just to give you an idea, this year they requested more seats for the Robinson and the Sullivan, and we couldn't move them fast enough. And so we had, as you know, the schools used to have ratios, was how many of the kids they can send out. I had to put that on hold, stop that practice, because otherwise they could never place anymore, and we need to help them. So what they have done is, in the case of the Sullivan, they created already an internal program by converting one of their SPED positions into this. But one teacher alone cannot handle, too many kids, and you need to provide not just the behavioral support, but you need to provide the academic support as well, just like we do it in the Cardinal. And the similar situation has been done at the Robinson, where they created already their internal program, because we are not able to move those kids out fast enough, as I explained earlier. Not anybody's fault. It's just the process is very rigorous, and everybody has to, so many rules and regulations have to be followed in doing that. But they have already created if you want, skeletons of programs within to hold some of the students and help them before. I think if you bring in the professionals there, I think we'll be helping them more, doing that more. And again, this is really early in the discussion, and I'm not going to pretend to be a specialist in SPED. I'm going to have to listen to them. Special education and student services, they're going to look at this and maybe determine the final configuration of those two programs, what they should be in those schools. Thank you.
Okay. I think you've vetted out a lot of information, but I need a motion to refer this to a subcommittee. Ms. Martin and Ms. Martin. We'll go to the Student Support Subcommittee. Okay, thank you. A roll call? No? Okay, all right. Less work. Okay. Mrs. Superintendent, we have a supplemental appropriation of funds from the city.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll give it a little brief explanation, and then if you have more questions, Mr. Frisch is here, he can answer. We have a couple, if you recall, one of them, everybody might remember, that we had a $250,000 that the city manager had committed to, and has never made it to our budget. So this is just a technicality. We have to go to the city council to ask for those $250,000. Of course, the city council we have to do it through what we call a new appropriation, and we cannot, as a superintendent or CFO, we can't go to them without the vote of the school committee approving that appropriation first. The second one has to do with the E-rate reimbursement. The E-rate, for those of you who might not remember, is a reimbursement program that for technology spending, certain technology types of spending. In the past, the E-rate program is funded one of two ways, is reimbursed one of two ways. Either the reimbursement is done directly to the vendor, say you're buying internet service from a vendor, and they charge you $10,000. The federal government, say, theoretically, I'm just an example here, would say reimburses $5,000. They will just pay the vendor directly, and the vendor charges you just the balance. Or sometimes they would reimburse you against your bill, and then you then enter that into your budget. In the past, before my time, in many districts, they all use the same thing. This E-rate is often reimbursement part of really the budget needs, and particularly in technology and instructional technology. Last year, some of the reimbursements of the E-rate had not reached before June 30, so it had come after June 30. So logically, the auditor did the right thing. It's the rule that when monies come after the school year is over, because we have closed out accounting, it would go into the general fund of the city, general revenues, the revenues of the city. Now, the city has just certified that cash, the city manager told me today. Now, we want those funds to come back to the school, and we have to follow the same process, having the school committee vote of an appropriation. The appropriation, then we go to the city council and ask for that funding to come back. That's the E-rate. The source of it is E-rate funding. The last piece is the school choice. As you remember, we have started school choice in our high school. Whenever a student comes to us from another community, Dracut, or Tewksbury, wherever they may come from, that community pays us a certain amount of money to the school so that helps for the expense of that student, their share, if you wish. So if you remember, in the funding for student funding, there are two sources of funding. One is from the state, one is from the local. So when a student comes from Lowell, city pays us, the state pays us. When a student comes from Dracut, the state pays us, the city, the school choice, their Dracut will send us their share. So when that funding comes, that funding is restricted in its use. You can't just use that funding any way you want. It's limited. It has to be for students. It has to be for the education of the children. Usually, the practice is to open a revolving account, and as you're receiving this funding, it'll go hit your revolving account, and then you spend from that on behalf of the students. Because we did this is the first time we do this, school choice. We didn't have the revolving account. They are setting up a revolving account for this year's revenues and all future ones. Last year's, again, came in. They went into general revenues. So it's just a technicality for us to have you vote in an appropriation which amounts to exactly that amount that we received from other communities and have it transferred back to the school. So that's what that document is.
So I need a motion to request the city council appropriate $472,116,000. Ms. Martin, and seconded by Mr. Nutter. Thank you. Roll call. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. You want to
I
speak?
was just curious, so I noticed that we had the number 15 as the max that we had set at the high school to reach that 87,000. How many actual students do we have in school choice at the high school?
Do not have that number.
Okay.
I would be more than happy to send it.
That would be great. Just
I will.
curious what that
I'll send it to
87
all the school
translates into.
committee.
Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
of course. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. We've had the motions made. Roll call.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mayor Samaras?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Okay, we have a request for a convention conference by Ms. Jill McNamara to take 20 students on a field trip. I need a motion to approve. Mr. Hoey, Mr. Dakota, roll call.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mayor Samaras?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
All right, we need, for professional personnel, we need a motion to approve the UTL donating sick days, 66 leave days to Sharon Kenny, Greenhouse school teacher. Motion to approve. Ms. Doherty, Mr. Dakota. Roll call.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mayor Samaras?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
All right, we have a communications, a letter from former Mayor Edward Kennedy, and it's a motion to endorse the city council's interest in exploring the changes, at Lowell High School. So, let me read the exact. Request a school committee endorse the city council intent to explore changing Lowell's preferred project options for the Lowell High School building project and direct the superintendent to notify the Massachusetts School Building Authority of the school committee's endorsement. So it's basically endorsing what the MSBA has requested. We had the Cawley site was first choice. We are now asking them to amend that so allow us to change to put in the downtown. Yes?
I would move to approve this. I just have a quick question for
Sure.
you. I'm wondering if this means that we have to, I heard on the radio that we have to review all 11 options?
No,
It's not my understanding based on the letter. The letter
the thing-
said we may,
Basically, the thing is, the MSBA knows what we want to do, okay? But what they're saying also is review some of the other options that you've had. Because the one thing they want to do is they want to have some finality to this. There was a disagreement as to what should go out there. There was a vote, a referendum. We have a direction. But what I heard them say basically is, you have the right to do, but please clear everything up. Make sure that this is the choice you want to make. And
So-
that's the downtown location.
so just to be clear, we're looking specifically at the downtown
Correct.
location. Are we going to review all options entailing the downtown location?
That's sometimes a matter of semantics, but the city manager will give us further information as to what he has to do. It's just that basically I'd go by this statement, that the MSBA just wants to be assured that we're in agreement with what's going to happen next. It's not the solid answer, but I mean, it's the MSBA, basically, we don't have to do another feasibility study or any of that.
That makes no sense.
But the thing is, it's just that they're used to, when sometimes people were saying, oh, we're gonna lose our standing, that doesn't happen. I've been in so many high school issues with friends of mine all over the state in which the high school, there's often a lot of dissension, or whatever you want to call it, as to where the high school should be built in other communities. So the MSBA has gone through this many times. But the thing is now, that Lowell had a referendum vote, we did all the process. They're just saying, okay, as part of our thing, just check everything out. Just make sure you didn't leave anything out. That's all. But we're not going through the complete feasibility study or anything like that. We're just approving, giving the city the right to say, okay, we're taking away the Cawley option, and we're going to be going towards another option. And we've vetted out, or we've looked at, we've done the work that's necessary to carry this out. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so I need a second to this. Mr. Nutter? Roll call, please.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mayor Samaras?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
No.
6 yeas, 1 nay, approved.
Okay. All right, I need a motion to recess and enter into executive session and to adjourn from that executive session. Motion, Mr. Dakota, second by Ms. Martin. Thank you. Okay, roll call.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mayor Samaras?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.